on the issue of cars being stranded, like that happened in Virginia, where people get stranded in their vehicles for an extended period of time. I think the longest time anybody ever said on that case was 27 hours. Some were 14, 17, so on. Different people said different things. But it was, people were stranded on a highway, and how would you keep warm in cold temperatures? Okay. Obviously, an electric car is going to have the limitation of a battery in it. If the battery's topped up, you're probably going to go for a very long time. If the battery is low, you're not going to go as long. The same thing is true with cars. If I'm driving with a quarter tank of fuel, I'm going to run out of fuel too. If I'm a quarter charge, I'm going to run out of fuel or run out of heat. The one thing that the gas car has over an electric car is it has so much waste heat. And of course, if you run it at idle, they don't use a lot of power or a lot of fuel. By the way, they used to. Oh gosh, back in the 70s when we had the gas lines where people were running out of gas waiting to get up to a gas station. A lot of cars used up to a gallon an hour. Different time. Anyway, they don't use as much now, and given the vehicles that are available now, you probably would be in better condition if you had a gasoline powered car. Now, before I get too deep in this thing, there's two channels that have done some pretty good tests on this, and that would be Dirty Tesla and Plug and Play EV. I will link their videos about that in the description. It's kind of interesting. I did my own little test, which wasn't any big deal, but it shows a little bit too. And let me go over my test. My test was the car was charged up to like 88%, which was pretty full charge. It's, that's pretty high. And it also has a 100 kW battery, so it's a big battery. I started out and I put it at 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the vehicle. And it was 37 degrees outside. Placed the car outside, and 14 and a quarter hours later, I looked at the car again. And it was 20 degrees outside, and we had 52% charge. It went from 88 to 52% charge. So, pretty big drop over the night. So if I had a gasoline powered car that had a 12 or 13 gallon tank, other videos will show you the numbers on how long it would last and so on. I'm not here to do that. But I think if you had a pretty full tank at a gas car, you could go longer. Now, the other issue is carbon monoxide. Can't get it from an electric car. Can't get it from a gas car. Even if you keep your exhaust clear, there are conditions where you can get CO in the car. The CO doesn't have to, you don't have to have a lot of it. You don't have to have a large percentage for it to be lethal. So there is that issue. With an electric, you're never going to have it. And then the other issue is, let's look at where and when this happened. Okay, this happened in Virginia, happened on a freeway. Everybody knew these people were stuck. there were people working to try to clear these cars out of there as soon as they could. There was plenty of equipment and so on there. Took them a while to get to everybody, but they could get them out. That's not the real problem. The real problem is if you're out in the wilderness someplace doing some sort of winter sport and there's pretty much nobody around and you get stuck, your electric car's probably in trouble. This thing in Virginia, I don't think anybody was in great trouble. But the case I'm considering is much worse. It's also not very common. I mean, the Virginia case wasn't very common. Having somebody get stuck in a car in the wilds of Oregon or Idaho or someplace, and maybe get lost on a road. I've heard of that happening. There's a better chance of you getting in trouble there. Of course, you also, if you are there, you should be thinking about maybe I should take a little extra fuel or something like that, or some sort of heating devices, and of course blankets and all that sort of stuff you should have anyway when you're going there. So if you were, you can't bring extra fuel for an electric car. It's just not very practical. I guess you could take a generator with you or something. That's not going to work very good. But what could you do if you had an electric car and you were stuck in a real situation where you could die there? Well, there's a pretty good option on an awful lot of these cars. Many, or if not most of these cars have seat heaters. Now, if you turned off the HVAC system and just use the seat heaters, which a lot of guys do because they want to save on the battery. I don't. I'm an old geezer. I like to be warm. But you could turn the seat heaters on and save your life. Now, you can't do that in a car with a gas car because it's just got the little 12-volt battery and it will run that battery down in no time at all. So there is an option there on electrics that could actually save your life. More in the Virginia case is more like comfort. I'm not saying nobody could die, because that could happen. But my case of being off in the wilderness someplace, yeah, that's a life and death situation. And if you had a 100 kW battery with, say, 50 kW in it, you could run them seat heaters for days on end. And you could keep warm. So, is it better to have a gas car when you're driving because you might get stuck? I don't think it really is that. That's really the question. If you had a pickup truck with a 28-gallon tank, yeah, you probably could go quite a ways just running the engine now and then and do fine. But if you had an electric car that had a pretty good sized battery, you could go for days on end too. So, everybody likes to say electric cars are bad, there's all these terrible things wrong with them. I think it's not near that bad. I think your number one, the case of something like this happening is really unusual. This is not something that happens commonly. You hear about it once every few years, where someone has, gotten off in a stick someplace and lost and died up in the woods. But it's not very common. So, should you never buy an electric car because of that? I just don't think that's an issue. I think a gas car is probably going to be a little better if you get in a situation like that. than an electric, but an electric could also keep you alive for a very long time. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that thing.